The most powerful machine ever built by human hands launched yesterday, and it cannot keep you alive. Starship V3 stands 124 meters tall, generates 80,800 kilonewtons of thrust, and carries 100 metric tons to orbit. It is, by every physical measurement, the greatest rocket in history. And if you climbed inside it today, you would be dead before it reached its destination. Not because the rocket might fail, because the universe does not care how large your rocket is. The forces that kill humans in deep space, radiation, vacuum, temperature, acceleration, do not scale with engineering ambition. Starship V3 passed its first flight test this week. The internet is calling it a revolution. What no one is saying is what happens to the person inside. That is what this video is about.
Starship V3 is not slightly bigger than what came before. It is a category break. Its 33 Raptor 3 engines produce 9,440 metric tons of combined thrust at liftoff. The entire Saturn V, the rocket that sent humans to the moon, produced roughly 3,400 metric tons. Starship V3 is nearly 3 times more powerful than the machine that remains the greatest achievement in human spaceflight history. The vehicle weighs 5,533 metric tons fully fueled. That is heavier than the Eiffel Tower. It stands 408 feet tall, taller than a 40-story building. SpaceX designed it to be fully reusable and to deliver cargo with the turnaround speed of a commercial aircraft. Those are engineering numbers. What they do not tell you is what happens to a 70-kilogram human body inside that vehicle when physics takes over.
The first reason you cannot survive a true mission in Starship V3 has nothing to do with the rocket. It is already waiting for you in space. Galactic cosmic rays, high-energy particles accelerated by dying stars across the galaxy, pass through metal walls, through spacecraft hulls, through human tissue. Earth's magnetic field blocks them here. Beyond low Earth orbit, there is no shield. A 6-month transit to Mars in Starship V3 would expose a crew to approximately 300 millisieverts of radiation. NASA's lifetime career limit for astronauts is 600 millisieverts total. One round trip to Mars consumes that entire lifetime allowance. Scientists have measured that the cancer risk from a Mars mission increases by roughly 5%. Dense shielding materials like lead make it worse. They generate secondary radiation more dangerous than the original particles. No material currently exists that solves this. The second reason is written in fire on the belly of every starship that has ever flown. Re-entry into Earth's atmosphere, or any atmosphere, requires surviving temperatures between 1,477 and 2,900 degrees Celsius on the vehicle's outer surface. Starship uses hexagonal ceramic tiles bonded to its hull to survive that environment. Every single starship that has re-entered the atmosphere has lost tiles. Tiles crack. Tiles burn through. Tiles fall off. The program has recorded no exception. During Flight 12 this week, Starship V3 survived re-entry. The heat shield showed no burn-through, but that vehicle splashed into the Indian Ocean. It will never fly again. A reusable human mission requires a heat shield that survives not once, but dozens or hundreds of flights. No such material currently exists outside of design documents. The Columbia disaster in 2003 killed 7 astronauts because of a single breach in a thermal protection system. Starships loses tiles routinely. The third reason involves 2 forces that seem like opposites but are equally lethal. At launch, Starship V3 accelerates its crew through forces approaching 3 to 4 G, 3 to 4 times their body weight, crushing their chest, compressing the spine, draining blood from the brain. Astronauts train years to manage seconds of that. Then comes the twist. Most people assume the danger ends once you reach space. It is where the deeper damage begins. Microgravity,
The weightlessness everyone associates with astronaut freedom begins destroying the human body the moment thrust stops. Bones lose density at roughly 1 to 2% per month. Muscles atrophy. Fluids shift toward the skull, increasing intracranial pressure. Vision degrades permanently in some astronauts due to that fluid shift compressing the optic nerve. A 6-month Mars transit in microgravity would leave a crew physically compromised before they arrived. The thing people dream about, floating in space, is silently disabling them.
Consider what the human body actually tolerates on Earth to understand how alien space truly is. You live at 1 atmosphere of pressure, 101,325 pascals pressing on every square centimeter of your skin. You evolved inside a magnetic cocoon that deflects 99.9% of the solar wind. You breathe a nitrogen-oxygen mixture at a temperature range your body was built for over millions of years. You lose roughly 1% of bone density per decade after 30. In space, that same 1% disappears every month. The temperature outside a spacecraft in Earth orbit swings 270 degrees Celsius between sunlight and shadow every 90 minutes. Your blood would boil in seconds without a pressurized suit if the hull were breached. The human body is not a space-capable machine with minor modifications needed. It is a fragile instrument built for one very specific planetary environment that does not exist anywhere beyond this atmosphere. What scientists just confirmed this week changes the framing of every conversation about Starship's human capability. Starship V3 flew its first test on May 22, 2026. It worked. It deployed 22 dummy Starlink satellites. Its heat shield survived re-entry with no confirmed burn-through. SpaceX declared the mission a validation of core objectives. The global media called it a revolution in spaceflight. What no one is talking about is what the flight actually was. An uncrewed suborbital hop that splashed an expendable vehicle into the Indian Ocean. There were no humans aboard. There was no orbital insertion. There was no recovery. SpaceX has yet to fly Starship into orbit. The most powerful rocket ever built has never placed a single human being in space. NASA is counting on it to land astronauts on the moon in 2028. The gap between what Starship V3 proved this week and what a crewed lunar mission demands is not a gap, it is an ocean. Here is the fact that reframes everything you have heard so far. SpaceX has invested over $15 billion in Starship development. They spent $3 billion in 2025 alone. The company filed its IPO prospectus this week, revealing a $657 million operational loss. This is not a program with infinite runway.
Now, hold that number against what human Mars travel actually requires. A fully closed-loop life support system, a rotating artificial gravity section to prevent bone and muscle loss, radiation shielding that does not yet exist, a heat shield that survives multiple Mars entry and Earth re-entry cycles without replacement, and enough fuel for a return trip. No version of Starship currently addresses more than one of those requirements. The rocket is extraordinary. The mission architecture for human deep space travel inside it does not exist yet. Not as hardware, not as a tested system, not as a funded program. The most powerful rocket in history is not a spaceship for humans yet.
The implications of this gap reach beyond SpaceX and beyond Mars. Humanity has now built a rocket that exceeds the power of anything in history. We can lift 100 metric tons to orbit. We cannot do is move the most essential component, a living human being who arrives in working condition. Every plan for a multiplanetary species, every Mars colony, every asteroid mining operation, every vision of humanity spreading through the solar system depends entirely on solving problems that Starship V3's flight this week did not solve and was never designed to solve. The rocket is the easy part. Keeping a human body functional across 225 million kilometers of lethal radiation, vacuum, microgravity, and psychological isolation,
That is the problem that determines whether our species ever leaves this planet permanently. We have not solved it. We have barely started.
Here is the cosmic irony at the center of this entire story. The better Starship becomes, the more dangerous it is to trust. Because the rocket works, the pressure mounts to put humans inside it before the life support systems, the radiation shielding, the artificial gravity solutions are ready. The history of spaceflight is a history of this exact error. The space shuttle flew 135 missions before 2 crews were killed, not because the rocket failed randomly, but because engineers accepted known risks under schedule pressure. The O-ring flaw that destroyed Challenger in 1986 had been documented and flagged before launch. The foam strike that destroyed Columbia in 2003 was a known recurring problem. We have done this before, built an extraordinary machine, declared it operational, and sent humans into it before it was ready. Starship V3 is the most capable rocket ever flown. That is precisely why the temptation to call it ready is so dangerous.
Every fact in this video points toward the same question, and no scientist alive can answer it. We know the human body breaks down in space. We know radiation accumulates without stopping. We know heat shields fail under stress. We know microgravity rewrites human biology month by month. And yet, is any of this truly unsolvable? Or are we simply standing at the early edge of a technology curve that will, within a human lifetime, make interplanetary travel as survivable as crossing an ocean? The history of science is littered with things declared impossible that became routine. And it is also littered with things declared imminent that never came. The question is not whether Starship V3 can carry cargo to Mars. The question is whether a biological creature that evolved in one gravitational field, inside one magnetic shield, breathing one atmosphere, can ever truly belong anywhere else, and whether we will discover the answer before we pay for it in lives.
Starship V3 is a genuine achievement, a machine that proves what human engineering can do when it refuses to accept the word impossible. But the rocket and the mission are not the same thing, and the gap between them is not closing as fast as the launch countdowns suggest. If this made you think, the video we made on why the moon landings nearly didn't come back will take everything you just heard about the gap between rocket capability and human survival and show you exactly what happens when that gap gets ignored with lives on the line. If you want more videos like this one, where we don't just celebrate the launch, but ask the questions the live streams skip, subscribing here costs you nothing, and it makes a direct difference in whether this channel keeps making them.